The holiday season is approaching. Don't waste time. Get your to-do list checked off right now. That's what Ohio State gets to do for the next 2 weeks. Welcome to the Podcast Daily for Wednesday. That's Bill Landis. I'm Jeremy Birmingham. I'm not Jeremy Birmingham. He's Jeremy Birmingham. And I'm Austin Ward. And Ohio State has 2 weeks to get ready for the big one. And at the risk of fast-forwarding past Michigan State and Minnesota.
We're going to fast-forward to Michigan State and Minnesota.
We're going to fast-forward right through it. With the things that we all believe Ohio State has to get addressed in time for the last week of the regular season. Does that work for you guys?
I like it.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, I'm Berm, and that's the way that this works. What do you got?
That Berm guy is constantly just making up rules as he goes. It's not even Freaky Friday, and yet here we are, Jennifer garnering ourselves. Let's see.
Is there another body switching we could have done? I want to be Lindsay Lohan.
There you go.
It's kind of weird.
No, think about it.
I know, but I'm just going to clip this video, and I'm going to have it
Just
you saying, I want to be Lindsay Lohan, and I'm going to spread that far and wide. And it's going to be
I'm not worried about it.
Really tremendous.
I'm going to embrace it. I said it. I stand on it.
Okay, so for me, the most important thing that has to happen is that Emeka Egbuka has to be the old Emeka.
Going to be mine.
Sorry, I'm Austin Ward, and I take people's thoughts. You have to get the real Emeka Egbuka back, and he was not himself on Saturday, even though he went out there and played against Rutgers. I think he was just sort of trying to get his feet back under him. You have 2 weeks to get him healthy, because if Michigan can go into that game keying entirely on Marvin Harrison Jr., that's bad for Ohio State, because Will Johnson is good enough to maybe guard him by himself some of the time. So you're going to need a number of options for Kyle McCord, and it's not just Emeka. It's Cade Stover being healthy. Mm-hmm. It's Julian Fleming being back to the guy that can catch the ball. These are things you have to have. You have to develop this passing game over the next 2 weeks. So, I think that there's a percentage of fans who think you just run through Michigan State and Minnesota. I think you need to use these 2 weeks to get cleaned up in the passing game. And I want to see them being more aggressive on that side of the ball over these next 2 weeks than they have been in the last two.
I think one of the best ways that they can do that is by figuring some things back out with the offensive line and the pass protection. I know that Bill can talk about this more eloquently, and I will let him do that. But it feels like there was so much coaching emphasis on improving the run blocking and the schemes and finding what worked there, that the sacrifice, the trade that you have to make, and that's an old coaching adage and cliche, like you're going to get what you emphasize. I feel like it stopped being as much about pass protection because Ryan Day wanted the balance, because they wanted to find ways to convert more in short yardage, because Travion Henderson was coming back and they wanted to get him in space, all those things. And you can see that growth and that progress from Ohio State offensively there, but the trade-off has been some pass protection reps that don't look very good and put Kyle McCord in situations where he either has to get the ball out quickly, or he has to rush a throw or a decision, or you don't have an opportunity to let maybe Marvin Harrison work a route longer down the field. That's why all these things, when you're evaluating one player or the quarterback specifically, the full context, I think, is important. And the pass protection, we always talk about it, and then it becomes dismissed immediately and based on every throw that's made, and not what may be making it more or less difficult for that quarterback. So I think it's got to be better by the last week of the regular season, and they've got 2 weeks, I think, maybe now that they've maybe got a handle on the run game, all right, let's go back and figure out what's got to be done to pick up these blitzes or things that they might be missing.
Yeah, I think their pass protection has been okay for most of the year. It does feel like there's been a little bit of slippage, though, the last couple of weeks, and I think it is what you're saying, maybe a hyper-focus on the run game, which has yielded results. So I don't know, maybe you can't complain too much about that, but you got to be able to do both. I asked Ryan Day on Tuesday about being able to see where blitzes and stuff are coming from, because I think that's what they've struggled with the most, I believe, in pass protection. I don't know that I feel like I see a ton of 4-down, one-on-one blocks, guys just getting beat. They happen against every offensive lineman, or most offensive linemen, but I don't think they're happening at an alarmingly high rate with this group. I think it's more of overloading one side, trying to figure out who to block, who's going to come, who's not, where the running back has to go. That's part of it too. So I think they need to get that stuff figured out. I also think, for as much as we've talked about the tackles, and I think that position deserved a lot of dialogue this year, Carson Hinsman has struggled in pass protection. I think if I were to like pinpoint one guy up front that I would like to see take a step forward, it'd be him. He allowed 4 hurries against Rutgers. I think he's allowed the most pressures of any of their offensive linemen this year. He's a young guy. He's a redshirt freshman. He's not played a ton. I don't know that any of that is surprising, but especially when you're looking toward Ann Arbor and you think about Mason Graham and Chris Jenkins and Kenneth Grant, like they have 3 very, very good defensive tackles. And I think the guards for Ohio State have played pretty well and are building up towards something. I'd like to see the center position do the same thing because I'm a little nervous about that spot.
All right. You want to go again?
Yeah. I wrote about this on Rivals on Tuesday. I would like to see them dial up some more play action passing or get that maybe to be a little more efficient and more explosive. If you look at how much they've done that the last 4 years, like starting with Justin Fields, Kyle McCord in terms of percentage of dropbacks to their play action passes is lagging a little bit behind, pretty far behind in some instances. Like I think CJ was like 37% his first year. Justin was up into the 30s too. Kyle is like just below 30%. So they don't need to ratchet it up big time, but I think they can do it more. I was surprised they didn't do a ton of it against Wisconsin, given how well they ran the ball in that game. I thought they could have done it more last week against Rutgers. Their touchdown pass to G. Scott did come off of play action, and they tried it a few more times, and it just didn't work. And I'm partly wondering if that can help protect the offensive line, help make Kyle McCord a little more comfortable if they can get him outside of the pocket and make some throws that way. And then maybe that can also lead to some more of the explosive passing plays that the Berm is looking for. And I agree with them. I think they need more of that. So whatever they need to do with that to get it going a little more, I think the next 2 weeks will be beneficial.
I'm in this weird like middle ground here because I want Tyleik Williams to play less over the next couple weeks, but I want Michael Hall to be more like Michael Hall that we saw a year ago. He's played fine. I'm not trying to suggest that he's not been playing good football, but he's not been the explosive game wrecker that we saw. And I think that you have an opportunity over the next 2 weeks with Michael Hall getting himself going again, but to bring along guys like Caden McDonald and Hero Kanu, who's starting to see an uptick in his playing time. I think when you go into Ann Arbor, you're going to need to have those bigs 100%. And you're going to need to have them feeling some confidence. And I think that that's actually a game where a guy like Hero Kanu is going to be maybe more important than we would have thought heading into this part of the season, because there's just not a lot of guys on this Ohio State roster that have the body that he does and the size that he does. So the defensive tackles have played great, especially Tyleik Williams. But I'd like to see Tyleik Williams get a couple weeks of load management here and find someone else to really step up. I love the way Ty Hamilton's been playing. Obviously, the run game has been his specialty since he started playing for Ohio State, but these next couple weeks you have a chance with Caden McDonald, who we've talked about in the middle part of October, and now Hero, who's starting to emerge. I think those guys get an opportunity to take a step forward over these next 2 weeks, and I think they have to.
I think the Mike Hall situation is pretty fascinating. He was available to the media last Wednesday night after practice, and nobody suggested it in this form to him. This was not the way the question was phrased. And he said, yeah, I've been in a little bit of a slump. I've been trying to get in there with Coach Jay. It was not some of the injury conversation that we had a year ago with him and wanting to play more snaps and not getting enough and not understanding, why he couldn't play more through the shoulder injury and everything else that he was dealing with, or the knee, or both, or all of it. He was like, well, I've been jumping out of some gaps and doing some things. And Jim Knowles alluded to that on Tuesday in his press conference. Like, that has happened at times for Ohio State against the rush. And I think when you picture Mike Hall at its best, it's like him getting a one-on-one pass rush situation against a guard and like destroying somebody with speed and great hands. And
he did that a couple times against Rutgers too. Early in the game, he absolutely obliterated the guard that he was up against.
Yeah, and like that's the best example of how he can change games. And I think that when you look at why does he not play the exact same amount of snaps as Tyleik Williams, and why does Ty Hamilton remain such a key part of the plan for Ohio State? I think that has to be it. I mean, Mike Hall is volunteering this information that he's not playing in gaps, that he feels like he's in a slump, and he's trying to figure that out. It's not pointing the finger anywhere else. He was taking the ownership for that. And again, when you talk about winning in the last week of the regular season, like Ohio State almost certainly on the road in that environment, and who knows how many leftover signals are still going to be laying around on the sideline. Those guys have to be at full capacity and full potential. And Mike Hall has, I think, the highest ceiling of those guys on the interior, with no knock to Tyleik Williams intended whatsoever. I think he's just the one that creates the most problems.
Agreed. That's why I brought him up. This Austin Ward guy is super smart.
I love that guy. He's the best. Let's see. What else can they do? Oh, yeah, they can fix the special teams. The end. That's all I have to say about it. I don't.
Fair enough.
I mean, I don't know. It's just silly to me. I don't want to talk about it, so I'm not going to. But if we're going to do a to-do list, it has to be on it.
Yeah, that might be pretty close to the top.
Yeah,
I think
special teams.
Yeah.
Just do it.
Do
Just
something
fix
right.
it.
Do something right there.
Can you do it? I don't know.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That'll do.
Yeah, that'll do.
That'll do. That'll help right there.
I do think, and it does go back to what Berm said right off the top, managing some of these injuries, but also, even if a guy is not, you guys both advocate for this more often than maybe I do with, well, just throw CJ Hicks out there for a drive. Michigan State on Saturday might be an opportunity for that with Tommy dealing with the forearm and elbow injury. You know what Cody Simon and Steel Chambers can do if you can get out there. And not even just CJ Hicks, maybe Gabe Powers, who's playing on special teams, and doesn't even have to just be linebacker. It can be other spots on the field. We saw.
I don't want CJ Hicks or Gabe Powers playing a different position than linebacker.
Okay. Thank you for.
What about punter?
What if they can help at punting?
Can they? I mean, I guess we'll find out.
I don't know.
Stay tuned.
I meant other positions, like Kai Stokes, who played at Rutgers, and that was more of an injury situation. But everybody likes to see the next wave and build for the future. You guys are always, pressing for that and how important that is for the future. And Berm, you tie that into NIL and transfer portal stuff. You guys probably have a pretty good point about that, especially in a situation where you are a 4-touchdown favorite on Saturday night against a terrible Michigan State program with no head coach. Maybe tinker a little bit. Maybe Brandon Ennis. Maybe Noah Rogers. Whoever.
Tinker.
Just tinker a little bit.
Just tinker it.
And if things get weird.
What was that movie? Tinker's Soldiers
Spy
something?
Yeah, Tinker Tailor's Soldier Spy, I think is what it was.
Must have been a great one.
Yeah, Gary Oldman.
Never saw it. Favorite.
It is. All right. So, for once, I am saying, hey, let's see some young guys.
Yeah, I like it. I agree with you. I would like to, there was a period starting with the Maryland game, Maryland, Penn State, Purdue, where I thought the pass rush really took a step forward. And I'm not saying it took a step back since then. I think maybe it's plateaued a little bit. I would like to see them ramp that back up these next 2 weeks. I know JT's a little banged up, right? He got hurt in the Wisconsin game. Maybe he's dealing with something there. He still played fine. He's still very good against the run, but he was a dominant sort of pass rush guy too for a couple week stretch there. I think he had 16 pressures or something like that over the course of those 3 games. But it's not just him, right? Can it be Jack? Can it be the interior guys you talked about? Kenyatta Jackson, Caden Curry, all of them. I would like to see them get after the quarterback a little bit, only because I guess I'll retract this if it doesn't happen this week when Michigan plays Penn State. I kind of think Michigan's tackles maybe can be got with some pressures. I thought Purdue's defensive line actually played a pretty good game against Michigan's offensive line this past weekend, and I am on alert for that being potentially an edge for Penn State when they play Michigan this week. Maybe I'll be wrong, and if I'm wrong, we can reassess. But I think that might be an area where Ohio State could have an advantage when it goes to play against Michigan. But I would like to see a build toward that starting this week against Michigan State.
And Blake Corum had 15 carries for 44 yards against Purdue. They did a really nice job up front. They just couldn't cover anyone in the back half.
Yeah,
which has been their problem all year. But I think when you're talking about the pass rush, as sort of a combination of points here, the Ohio State defensive ends, Jack Sawyer and JT Tuimoloau, have played pretty well all year. We've started to see more and more of Caden Curry and Kenyatta Jackson. These are the next 2 weeks where you can get these guys an opportunity to go out there. And it's not just about this year. It's not even just about getting JT and Jack 100% for Michigan. It's about knowing that there's a very good chance both JT and Jack will not be on this roster next year. So you need to figure out what these other guys can do against Big Ten opponents. And I know Michigan State and Minnesota maybe aren't the creme de la creme, but they are good enough for Caden Curry, Kenyatta Jackson, Omari Yabor, Mitchell Melton
is,
to get out there and play some football. Mitchell Melton has made an impact nearly every time he's been on the field. We've talked about Caden Curry all year. I thought Kenyatta Jackson's played very well the last couple of weeks when he's had a chance to get in there. And I think it's time to see what Amari Abor and Kenyatta Jackson and these guys can do. So to me, that's, we have taken the foot off of the gas of the Larry Johnson rotation pedal this year because he's done a great job, I think, adjusting after what was a confusing year in 2022. Now it's time to get Jack and JT a chance to rest. Both those guys are banged up. It's November. Everyone's hurt. But who's not hurt is Caden Curry and Kenyatta Jackson and Amari Abor and Mitchell Melton. So play those guys.
This is going to sound like I'm trying to make a joke, and I promise you I'm not. You have 2.5 weeks to get ready for that game. And everyone says, well, why don't you just change up your signals? Like, they won't be able to steal them if you change them. That's very difficult to do for college football when you're talking about the number of people that are involved in it, the number of plays that are involved, the way that it has to be signaled in. So I don't know how they'll do it, but I think Ohio State is going to spend time in the next 2 weeks figuring out if it's wristbands, if it's going to the sideline, if it's huddling, if it's going fast like Justin Fields against Brent Venables in the Sugar Bowl. I think that at this point, the hard challenges, the road trips, the Penn State, Notre Dame, all that stuff is in the rearview mirror. Even though you're not taking Michigan State and Minnesota necessarily for granted as a coaching staff, you simply have to be prepared that there may still be remnants that could concern you about play calling offensively and defensively. I think some element of time on the practice field has to be devoted to that.
You know why before you give your point, I think it's actually a bigger concern than people would think, because the coaches that are most likely have been working in tandem with Connor Stallions, the coordinators, are still almost certainly going to be on the sideline that day, even if Jim Harbaugh's not. And I think that is where the Big Ten's potential punishment, which we're seeing sort of floated around, that maybe the suspension will be handed out on Wednesday of a season-long thing that Michigan will certainly try to fight. But I don't think that it's being mentioned that the coordinators are being included in that. And if they're not, those are the guys who are almost certainly more linked to Connor Stallions directly. So just 2 cents.
Yeah, no, I think you're both right. The X factor is that it's on the road, right? Communications. Michigan Stadium is not an overly loud stadium, but they'll be making noise when Ohio State's on offense.
Pretty loud in 2021.
Yeah, they can turn it up, and I don't know, huddling could be more difficult. Just getting that communicated in a huddle. However you want to do it, I don't know. And tempo, I think, is affected sometimes by crowd noise as well. So I'm interested to see how they play it. I do think they'll make some kind of adjustment. Maybe it's all of the above. There have been games where they've really mixed it up, I think, to kind of keep people off balance. I thought they did that well against Clemson in the Sugar Bowl. So, yeah, I think they will probably change something and should.
All right. Well, there's that time to get that done for 2 days after Thanksgiving. Get all your holiday shopping done as well. No
time to start.
No time like the present. And thank you for joining us on the podcast daily for Wednesday. The three of us are Bill Landis, Jeremy Birmingham, and Austin Ward in some form or fashion.
It's up to you to figure that out.
I don't remember which. My brain is fading me, but I'm going to try to get it back later on. Thanks for joining us. I'll talk to you later.